O weary soul, you who have been waiting far longer than you expected, far longer perhaps than you are certain you can continue to endure, listen to me. Come and be still for a moment. Set aside, if only for this brief time of sitting together, the weight of your anxious striving. Put down the restless turning of circumstances in your mind, the desperate arithmetic of hope deferred, and prayers that have seemed to dissolve into silence before they rose. Come and sit with me in this stillness, dear heart, and let me speak to you of something I know with the whole of my being, something upon which I have staked everything I am, something that has not once, not in any hour, not in any darkness, not through any confusion or grief or long silence, failed me in all the winding passage of my days. God has not forgotten you, not for a single moment, not in any season, however bleak and however prolonged, not through the silence that has perhaps made you begin to wonder, not through the waiting that has perhaps caused your faith to tremble, not through the long and gray stretches when heaven seemed distant and your prayers seemed to find no landing place, and your hope seemed to thin like morning mist. He has not forgotten you. He has never forgotten you. And everything, beloved, even that which you cannot yet comprehend, even that which has brought you to tears in the deep watches of the night, even that which has made you ask the hard and honest question of whether God is truly attending to you at all, everything is moving, with a precision and a care and a purpose that far exceeds your present capacity to perceive, toward a conclusion so right, so beautiful, so perfectly fitted to the particular story of your life, that when at last you behold it, the long waiting will not seem to you as it seems now. It will seem instead like the most necessary thread in the whole fabric of what He was making. But I will not rush you to that end, before we have honestly named where you are standing in this present hour. For I have learned, slowly and at some cost, that the soul is not well served by haste, and that comfort which flies too quickly past the wound does not heal it, but only drives it deeper, there to ache in ways one does not immediately perceive. A wound that is not named cannot be brought into the light, and it is only in the light that healing truly comes. So let me ask you gently, dear heart, how long have you been waiting? Not merely in the counting of days or months, though it may indeed have been many of both, but how long has it felt in the interior of your soul? How long has your heart been stretched between the thing that was promised and the thing that has thus far arrived? How long have you been rising each morning with the same petition pressing upon your chest like a stone, looking out upon the same unchanged circumstance, and asking, in the quiet of your thoughts, or sometimes in the desperate urgency of genuine anguish, how long, Lord? How long until the thing I have been trusting you for finally comes to pass? How long until this silence breaks? How long until I am able to see even the outline of a purpose behind all of this? This is an ancient cry, dear soul. You are not the first heart to have sent it upward, and the sending of it is not evidence of a faith that is failing. The mightiest and most faithful souls who ever walked this earth have stood in this same hard country of waiting, have looked up at this same seemingly silent sky, and have asked this same trembling and honest question. They are preserved for us, these prayers, in the ancient songs of God's people. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long shall I have sorrow in my heart daily? These words were not written by the faithless, nor by those who had given up. They were written by people whose faith was so genuine that it could survive being honest, who loved God enough to bring before Him not only their gratitude and praise, but their confusion, their grief, and their most difficult questions. You are in good company, beloved. The waiting is a hard country, a land of little visible comfort and much invisible grace. But you have not wandered outside the boundaries of faith by finding it difficult. You have not failed by struggling. You have not disqualified yourself from God's attention by growing weary of the long road. Let us speak honestly then of what this waiting does to a soul, for it deserves honest speech. It wears at you, does it not? Not all at once, not in some sudden and dramatic breaking, but gradually, persistently. the way that water wears its stone through the patient turning of the seasons. There is a particular quality to the early days of any waiting, when the thing hoped for feels near, when the answer seems almost imminent, when the not yet has about it a certain sweetness, almost the quality of adventure. The faith is perhaps easier to hold in those early days. One prays with a sense that the reply is already forming somewhere beyond the horizon, that the delay is brief, that the waiting is a season and not a sentence. But as the seasons turn, one and then another and perhaps another after that, and the answer does not come, the character of the waiting begins, almost imperceptibly at first, to change. What was once sweet expectation grows heavier. The space between what was believed for and what has arrived begins to press upon the soul in ways it did not press at the beginning. The certainty that sustained you in the early days is perhaps not as bright as it once was, not gone perhaps, but dimmer, the way a flame dims when the wind has been blowing against it for a long time. The prayers that were once full and flowing have perhaps grown shorter. Not from faithlessness, dear heart, I do not say this with any judgment, but from a weariness of bringing the same need before the same throne and departing, again with the same empty hands. And there is another grief woven into the fabric of the long wait, one that we rarely speak of plainly, but which nearly every waiting soul has felt in the quiet of their heart. It is the grief of watching others receive what you have been asking for. You try to rejoice with them, and in many moments you genuinely do rejoice, for their joy is real and your love for them is real. But somewhere beneath the rejoicing, in a place you would perhaps rather not acknowledge, a quiet and painful question rises. Why them and not me? And then following close behind that question comes the shame of having asked it at all, which adds its own weight to the weight you are already carrying. Oh, beloved, I know this interior landscape. I know the accumulated exhaustion of hope deferred, the way it settles into the bones and into the spirit alike. I know what it is for hope itself to begin to feel dangerous, more dangerous perhaps than simply ceasing to hope, because to hope is to remain open to the possibility of disappointment, and you have been disappointed enough times already that the openness itself has become its own kind of pain. It is safer, some quiet part of you begins to suggest, to expect nothing. At least then, nothing can be taken from you. I see all of this, dear heart. I speak of it not to increase your heaviness, but so that you will know yourself to be truly seen within it, the full and complicated interior of your waiting, not merely the surface of the petition, the simple statement of what you have been asking for, but the doubt that has grown beneath it, the grief that has wound itself through it, the small and daily defeats that accumulate in the unseen interior of a soul that is trying very hard to keep believing. All of it is known. All of it is received. None of it is hidden from the eyes that have been upon you through every hour of every day of this entire season of your life. And from within this knowing, I say to you with a certainty I would not trade for anything this world has ever offered. God has not forgotten you. Consider, if you are able to lift your eyes even briefly from the immediate weight pressing upon you, the nature of God's attention, not as an abstraction, not as a piece of theology, to be agreed with and set aside, but as a living reality that touches your particular life in this particular hour and this particular need. Consider what He holds in His awareness at every moment, the span of stars beyond all counting, each one known to Him by name, each one held in its course by His continuous and inexhaustible care, the fall of every sparrow in every field, in every corner of creation, not one tumbling to the earth outside His notice, not one small death occurring beyond the awareness of those eyes that miss nothing, that have never missed anything since the first moment of the world's beginning. The particular and unrepeated formation of every snowflake that has ever descended from every winter sky throughout all the long history of this earth, each one distinct, each one known, each one cradled for its brief and beautiful existence within His attentive sight. This is the attention of God. Beloved, this is the quality, the precision, the personal intimacy of His noticing, not a broad and sweeping awareness that takes in multitudes while losing the particular, not the distant regard of one too occupied with vast concerns to attend to small ones. An attention that holds the immensity of the cosmos and the fall of a single sparrow with the same complete and undivided presence, that knows the movements of galaxies and the number of hairs upon your particular head with equal thoroughness, that perceives both the grand sweep of history and the specific shape of the fear that kept you awake last night. And you who were fashioned not at random and not as one undifferentiated instance of a general type, but with intention and with love, with a particularity and a purpose established before you drew your first breath. You who are not merely a number in a great accounting, but a singular soul with a singular name, known and called and cherished before the foundations of the world were laid. You are asking whether this God has perhaps overlooked you in the press of greater concerns. There are moments when you forget your own need, when exhaustion or the merciful distraction of ordinary life carries you briefly out of the conscious awareness of what you are waiting for. God has no such moments. His attention upon you has not wavered for an instant, not in any hour of your life, not through any darkness, not in any season when you felt most invisible, most overlooked, most profoundly and painfully alone. He sees you now, in this very moment. He has always seen you. He will never cease to see you. But let me speak carefully about the nature of this seeing, for it matters greatly how we understand it. We have sometimes, through the distortions of our experience, been given images of divine sight that feel more like surveillance than love, a cold and unblinking eye that records every failure, watches for every weakness, maintains a meticulous account of every time we have fallen short. And if this is the image that inhabits your understanding of what it means to be seen by God, if to be seen by Him feels like exposure rather than comfort, like the gaze of a judge rather than the gaze of a father, then the knowledge that His eyes are upon you will bring dread rather than rest. This is not the seeing of which I speak. When God looks upon you, dear soul, He looks with the eyes of the one who made you, who breathed into you the capacity for feeling and for longing and for loving, who fashioned you for communion with Himself, and placed within the center of your chest this ache for something that the world cannot satisfy, precisely and lovingly and intentionally, because He intended to be the answer to that ache Himself. He looks upon you as a craftsman looks upon the finest work of his hands, not with detached appraisal, not with the cool eye of an assessor measuring value, but with deep, personal, invested affection. He looks upon you the way the best father looks upon the child he would give his life for, not the harsh and recording father who keeps account of disappointments, the tender father, the good father, the one who watches his child sleep and feels a love so fierce and full and overwhelming that it is almost more than can be held within a human heart. The one who knows before the child has spoken a single word that the child is struggling, and whose heart moves toward them in that knowing, not with judgment but with love. You are known like that, beloved, entirely, particularly by name, not in general, specifically, with a knowing that takes in every layer of you, the surface that the world sees and the interior that you hide, and the deeper interior beneath that, and the deepest places of all, the ones you have perhaps never shown to any other living soul, the ones you are perhaps not fully aware of yourself. All of it is known. All of it is loved. Now let me speak to you of the silence. For I believe that understanding the silence of God is among the most important and most healing things a waiting soul can receive. The silence is perhaps the hardest part, harder in certain ways than a clear refusal would be. If God were to say plainly, "This particular thing shall not come to pass," you could grieve it honestly and then release it and turn your face in another direction, toward whatever comes next. Grief, however sharp, is something the soul knows how to move through when it is allowed to be grief. But silence, the long, ambiguous, searching silence of a prayer that has not yet been answered, leaves the soul in a particular suspension. You cannot grieve it as a loss, for it has not been declared a loss. You cannot rest in certainty, for the certainty has not arrived. You are left hovering between hope and its absence, in a place where the ground beneath you does not feel entirely solid, waiting for a word that has not yet been spoken. And in this suspension, beloved, the voice of despair finds its easiest access. It is in the silence that the whispers come most readily. Perhaps he is not listening. Perhaps your prayers are not reaching. Perhaps the silence is itself the answer. Perhaps you are not the kind of soul whose prayers carry weight. These whispers arrive with a terrible plausibility in the long silences, because they offer an explanation for what otherwise seems inexplicable. They give the silence a meaning, even if the meaning is a cruel one. Oh dear heart, hear me now with all the attention you have. The silence of God is not the silence of indifference. It is not the silence of absence. It is not the silence of a heaven that has gone deaf to your petitions, nor of a God whose attention has been claimed by more pressing concerns, nor of a love that has grown weary of your need. The silence of God is, in my deepest experience, most often the sound of His most careful and most intimate working. Consider the seed that is planted in the ground in the last cold days of winter. In the days and weeks that follow the planting, there is nothing visible to the watching eye. The soil looks undisturbed. The surface gives no evidence of any activity beneath it. One who stood and watched that ground and did not understand the nature of seeds and soil might conclude after a sufficient time of seeing nothing that the seed had come to nothing, that the ground had not received it, that some failure had occurred, that the planting had simply not taken. And this conclusion would be entirely reasonable, based upon the evidence available. But beneath the surface, in the hidden and invisible depth of the soil, something of extraordinary consequence is taking place. The seed is breaking open, that necessary and beautiful breaking that must happen before anything can grow. The dissolution of the outer shell, so that the inner life can find its way into expression. Roots are going down, slowly and steadily, and with great purpose, anchoring what will come after against every storm. The first press upward toward a light not yet visible has begun, guided by something deeper than sight, drawn by something more certain than experience, moving toward what it was made to reach. This, beloved, is what occurs in the seasons of God's silence, in the stretches when nothing appears to be happening, when the heavens seem still, and your prayers seem to dissolve before they rise and the surface of your circumstances appears unchanged. Something is being worked in the depths of your situation and in the depths of your soul that cannot be wrought any other way and cannot be hurried by any force of human will. Roots are going down in you. Foundations are being laid that will bear the weight of what is coming. You are being prepared, not punished, not forgotten, not left to manage the difficulty alone, but prepared with the care and the precision of one who knows exactly what he is making and will not deliver it before its time, because he loves you too deeply to give you something only half ready. The silence is not abandonment. The silence is the hidden workshop of God, and the work being done within it is real, and it is for you, and it will not fail. And now let me speak to you of His timing, for this is at the very heart of what a waiting soul most needs to receive and most struggles to hold. We are creatures of time, you and I. We live inside it, feel its passage, know what it is to watch the seasons change and the years accumulate. Because we are finite creatures living finite lives, we have a natural and entirely reasonable relationship with urgency. Things matter to us in part because they are temporary, because windows close, because seasons pass, because what is possible now may not always be possible. This is not a flaw, it is simply the nature of what we are. But God is not a creature of time. He dwells within it without being bound by it, perceives its entire span the way one standing upon a great height perceives the whole course of a river, not from one point upon the bank watching only what flows immediately past, but the source and the middle and the ending all at once, the tributaries and the turnings, all of it visible, all of it held within a single sustained act of knowing. What appears to you as delay, as frustrating, inexplicable, perhaps even painful slowness, is not what it appears to be from the vantage point of eternity. From where God stands, He perceives what the delay is protecting you from. He sees the door that must close before the right one opens. He sees the preparation that must occur within you before you are truly ready to receive what He has in mind. He sees the other lives woven through the answer that is coming. Other souls, other circumstances, other threads of story that must reach a certain point in their own unfolding before the fullness of what He intends can arrive. He sees all of this with perfect clarity and orders all of it with perfect wisdom. He is never late. He is never careless. He has not once miscalculated the timing of anything He has put into motion. His timing is not indifference to your suffering, beloved. His timing is love, the most precise and the most thoughtful expression of love, the love that refuses to give you something less than what He truly intends simply because you are in pain in the waiting. And consider this, dear heart. Consider how often, when you are able to look back upon the road already traveled, you can see that an answer given at the moment of asking would have been an answer to the wrong question. Think of the prayers of your earlier years, the things you petitioned for with complete and earnest certainty, the relationships you longed for that were not granted, the doors you beat upon with such urgency that did not open. How many of them, in the grace of hindsight, do you now understand were mercifully withheld? The door that shut in your face and hurt you as it shut, where did the path that opened instead eventually lead? The prayer that seemed entirely unanswered, is there a version of your life in which it was answered as asked? And does that version appear better than the one in which you actually find yourself? There is grace in the prayers that were not answered as asked, beloved. There is mercy in delays that appeared, in their season, to be nothing more than cruelty. The God who sees the end from the beginning was not being slow. He was being careful. He was working on a canvas larger than any you could see from where you stood, and the colors He was laying down in those seasons of apparent silence were necessary to the painting He was making, even when, from up close, they appeared only as confusion. Can you trust this, dear soul? Not easily, I know. Not without honest acknowledgement of how much the waiting has cost you. But can you hold, even alongside the grief, even through the confusion, the possibility that He knows what He is doing? That the God who fashioned the heavens and set the stars in their places is also attending, with equal wisdom and equal care, to the particular timing of the answer you have been waiting for. His timing is perfect, beloved. Not comfortable, not painless, not always shaped as a hurting soul would choose, but perfect, exactly right, exactly suited to you and to what is still coming and to the story that is not yet finished. Now I want to speak to you, dear heart, of something I have found to be among the most strengthening practices available to a soul in the midst of a long wait, and it is the deliberate turning of the gaze backward. When we are in a hard season, the whole force of our attention is naturally drawn forward, toward the answer that has not yet come, the change that has not yet arrived, the door that has not yet opened. We live with our attention fixed upon what we do not yet possess, and in this posture it becomes very difficult to perceive the evidence of God's faithfulness, because we are not looking in the direction where that evidence most clearly appears. But turn and look backward, beloved. Look at the road that lies behind you. You have survived every hard thing that has come before this one. Every darkness that once seemed as though it would swallow you whole has, in fact, been survived. Every night that seemed in its depths as though morning would never come did, in the end, give way to morning. Every season that pressed upon you with the weight of something permanent eventually lifted into the next. Every burden that once seemed beyond your capacity to carry has, somehow, been carried, not because you were strong enough on your own, though you are stronger than you perhaps know, but because you were not carrying it alone, because hands stronger than yours were underneath you in every moment when your own hands began to fail. Look backward and see the fingerprints of God upon the story of your life. They are there, beloved. They have always been there. The circumstance that seemed at the time to be nothing but misfortune and revealed itself in the fullness of time to have been a redirection, a turning away from something that would have harmed you and towards something that would serve you. The closed door that wounded you as it shut and led you, after grief and adjustment, onto a path that suited you more truly than the one from which you were turned away. The prayer that seemed to go unanswered, that came instead in a form you did not at first recognize as answer, but which, in the light of where you now stand, you can see was wiser than what you had asked for. These are not accidents, dear soul. These are the signature of a God who has been working in your life with faithfulness and precision and love far longer and far more thoroughly than you have perhaps given him credit for. The same God who ordered all of that, who was present and active and purposeful through every one of those moments that seemed in their hour only confusing or painful, is the same God who is present and active and purposeful right now in this present season of waiting, in ways that are not yet visible to you. What he has been in your past, he is in your present. The faithfulness visible in the backward glance is the same faithfulness operating right now in the silence and in the waiting. He has not changed. His capacity to bring beauty from ashes, meaning from confusion, life from what appeared to be only loss, this is undiminished. It is what he is, it is what he does, and what he has done before in your life, he is doing now. Let the evidence of his past faithfulness be the anchor for your present trust, dear heart. You do not need to feel the anchor working in order for it to be holding. The ship that rides out the storm does not always feel the anchor in the deep water beneath it, but the anchor is there, and it is holding, and the ship does not drift, however wild the waters above may be. And now, beloved, I must speak to those among you who are very near the edge, not in some dramatic and sudden fashion, but in the quiet and gradual way that exhausted souls approach the place of giving up, by letting the hope grow a little dimmer with each passing day, by investing a little less in the trusting, by allowing the distance between yourself and the belief that things can truly change to grow so great that the belief itself becomes hard to locate within you. Oh dear heart, I am speaking to you now with everything I have. Hear me with whatever strength remains in you. The darkest hour is not proof that the light will not come. It is simply the darkest hour. Those who have lived through long nights of the soul know that there comes a point in every such night when the darkness reaches its greatest depth, when the cold is most bitter, and the distance to morning seems most impossibly vast, and every instinct says that this is simply how it will be, that there is no dawn coming, that the night has become permanent. This moment, this most extreme and concentrated darkness, comes immediately before the sky begins, almost imperceptibly at first, to change, not after the light is clearly visible, before it. In the very last minutes of the night's greatest depth, before a single ray has broken the horizon, the darkness is at its most absolute. You may be in that moment right now, dear soul. You may be far closer to the answer than the darkness is currently telling you. You may be nearer to the turning, nearer to the moment when the silence breaks and the waiting ends, and the thing you have been holding on for finally arrives, than the silence is suggesting. And if you give up now, in this very hour of maximum darkness, if you close the door of your heart and turn your face away from what you have been trusting for, you will not know how near you were. You will have left in the last moments of the night, just before the morning that was already preparing to arrive. Hold on, beloved. One more day, one more prayer, even if it is brief and broken, even if the words are few and the feeling behind them is faint. One more deliberate turning of the face toward God, even if the turning feels more like willpower than like faith. The worth of trust is not measured by how certain it feels. It is measured by the one in whom it is placed, and the one in whom you are placing your trust is entirely and utterly worthy of it, in every season, in every circumstance, without exception. Hold on, now let me bring everything together, dear heart, and name with all plainness the foundation upon which every word I have spoken rests. God is good. Not good in some qualified or theoretical sense. Not good only when circumstances happen to be favorable. Not good only to those who have somehow earned His goodness through sufficient faith or sufficient virtue. Good in Himself, good in His nature, good in every act and every allowance, every answer and every season of silence, every open door and every closed one, every gift and every not yet. The goodness of God is not a variable that shifts with our experience of it. It is not diminished when we cannot perceive it. It does not require our circumstances to be pleasant in order to be real. It simply is, as surely and as permanently as He Himself is. And you are held in the hands of this goodness right now. Dear soul, you have always been held in the hands of this goodness, through every season when it was hardest to perceive, through every dark night when it seemed most distant, through every silence when it seemed most in question. The goodness has never wavered, the faithfulness has never faltered, the love has never turned aside. He is good, He has not forgotten you, and His timing is moving, with a precision and a love and a completeness that exceed all your present comprehension, toward you, toward the conclusion of this waiting, toward the answer that is coming. The story of your life is not finished, beloved. You are in the middle of it, in that hard and uncertain middle, where the shape of the ending cannot yet be clearly seen, where the way forward is not as plain as you would wish. But the author of this story is good. He has not lost the thread. He knows exactly what he is writing toward, and he is writing towards something that will, when it arrives, make sense of every chapter that has thus far seemed senseless, bring meaning to every season that has thus far seemed only painful, and cause you to look back over the whole long road of the waiting and say, with a wonder that surpasses all the grief that came before it, He was working. He was always working. He did not forget me. He did not fail me. He was making something beautiful, and I am standing in it now. Trust Him, dear soul, not blindly, not without honest acknowledgement of how much this has cost you, but truly, deliberately, with the trust that says, I do not understand all of this. The silence has been harder than I knew how to prepare for. The waiting has stretched longer than I thought I could sustain. But I know that you are good. I know that you have not forgotten me. And I choose, even here, even now, even in this, to trust that your timing is better than mine, and your ways are wiser than mine, and your love for me is more faithful than my ability to fully comprehend it. Open your hands, beloved. Release what you have been holding so tightly in the effort to force the answer, to control the outcome, to manage through sheer exhausting will what was never meant to be managed alone. Open your hands and let what is in them rest in hands that are stronger and wiser and more capable of holding it than yours. He is waiting for this small and trembling willingness. He is not waiting for your certainty or your composure. He is waiting only for the slight opening of the closed fist, the tiniest gesture of release, the smallest motion of trust. He will do the rest. He is the God who runs toward us while we are still far off. He is the God who meets us in our turning. He is the God who takes what we offer, broken and small and insufficient as it is, and receives it as though it were precious, because to Him it is precious, because you are precious to Him, because the very turning of your heart toward Him matters to Him more than you can presently imagine. O beloved, O dear and searching soul, you are not forgotten. You have never been forgotten. Every day of your waiting has been witnessed by eyes that never close. Every prayer has been received by ears that never grow deaf. Every tear that has fallen in the darkness has been seen and held by the one who loves you with a love that does not falter, does not fail, does not cool through any distance or any silence or any length of waiting. God has not forgotten you, and everything in His time, in His way, by His love, according to the perfect wisdom of the one who sees the end from the beginning. Everything shall be well. Hold on, dear heart. The morning is coming. Go in peace, beloved, and know in the deepest place of your knowing that you are held.